It's November 20th, a new moon in Scorpio, 28 degrees. That same day, even if you don't do any ritual, even if you don't light any candle, even if you are not thinking about astrology at all, you are going to throw something in the trash. A small gesture, almost automatic, with no obvious meaning. But that gesture is going to be the seed of your 2026. Just like real seeds, they don't make noise, they don't flash, they don't ask for attention, they simply fall and begin. New moons return every month. They begin, retreat, begin again. They are part of a natural rhythm. This one on November 20th isn't special because it's a new moon, but because of how the chart around it is arranged. Sun and moon together at 28 degrees. Mercury retrograde reaching the exact same degree. A large water trine, completely retrograde. Jupiter retrograde in Cancer, Saturn retrograde in Pisces, Neptune also retrograde in Pisces. Uranus retrograde opposing from 29th degrees of Taurus. Pluto, Venus and Mars are the only planets moving direct. The whole chart says, you don't need to do anything. What's living lives by itself, and what's beginning begins without warning. The Sabian symbol for this degree is an Indian woman pleading to the chief for the lives of her children. It's not literal. In Sabian astrology, this image speaks about protecting what is essential, interceding for what's still vulnerable, defending the future, valuing what depends on you, and distinguishing what deserves to continue from what has completed its cycle. This new moon places you in front of a quiet question. What part of your life deserves protection, and what part needs to be released? What you throw away isn't random. What you throw away is what cannot go into your 2026. And what stays is what still needs your protection, your symbolic children, projects, connections, ideas, habits, inner processes that are still growing. The image speaks of a silent act of love, and that act can be as simple as throwing something in the trash. This new moon is wrapped in a retrograde water trine. Jupiter retrograde in Cancer, Saturn and Neptune retrograde in Pisces. It's not an expressive emotional trine. It's not an open sensitivity moment. It's an inward movement, completely intimate. Jupiter retrograde in Cancer expands inward. It makes you review what made you feel safe, what you held onto by habit, which emotional parts need updating. Saturn retrograde in Pisces reviews invisible boundaries, silent agreements, emotional responsibilities you took on without noticing. Neptune retrograde in Pisces cleans perception. It removes fog. It doesn't confuse, it distills. This trine doesn't push you forward. It doesn't open a new path. It works in the background, It filters, it drains, it composts. Like when something old breaks down, even though you are not watching it. That's why this new moon feels like this. Not like a decision, but like wear and tear reaching its natural end. Uranus retrograde at 29 degrees Taurus is exactly opposite the new moon. And this opposition matters for two reasons. First, it's the second time Uranus passes over this degree. When a slow planet returns to a degree, it doesn't bring a new shock. It doesn't bring a sudden event. It doesn't bring chaos. It brings confirmation. It's like seeing a crack on the wall in summer and seeing the exact same crack again in autumn, just a little deeper. You are not surprised. You just think, yes, this was already here. This isn't fixing itself. This has run its course. That's why Uranus retrograde doesn't appear as lightning. It appears as clarity, as acceptance, as that moment when you stop fighting what you already knew had to end. Second, Uranus is at 29 degrees, the critical degree. 29 is the last degree of a sign, the point where the old can no longer sustain itself, but the new hasn't manifested yet. At 29 degrees, the form is expired, the structure no longer works, the habit makes no sense, the identity doesn't fit. It's the degree where you release without drama because there's nothing left to hold on to. When Uranus hits this degree and retrograde on top of it, the liberation doesn't come from a crisis. It comes as evidence. It is not, wow, what a shock, I never saw it coming. It is, that's it. This isn't coming back. I don't need this. It's the kind of change that doesn't hurt. The kind of change that had already been decided inside you. The kind of change that feels clean. That's why the gesture is small. Retrograde Uranus at 29 doesn't ask for a leap. It asks for a discard. And that discard can be literal. Throwing something away, deleting an app, removing a number, closing a file, dropping a physical habit. What you release that day, you release because it's already gone. And you do it without drama, like taking out the trash. Pluto, Venus and Mars are the only planets moving direct. Pluto direct in Aquarius keeps pushing collective changes that don't depend on you. Venus in Scorpio keeps the honesty of desire intact. Mars in Sagittarius keeps moving in its natural trajectory. When everything else reviews, pauses, filters, these three keep going. Life doesn't stop while you are letting something go. It continues. So, the everyday image of this new moon, nothing dramatic, nothing mystical, nothing esoteric, just this. A grey November morning in the kitchen, you throw away yesterday's coffee grounds, an old receipt, a piece of paper that no longer matters, an object from another time. an empty jar, a note you no longer want to keep. You tie the bag, leave it by the door. Soft rain outside. You don't feel anything special, but that gesture marks a before and an after. That's where your 2026 begins. In that exact moment where you throw out what can't stay and keep what still can. That is the new moon. That is the Sabian symbol. That is the moment where, without realizing it, you decide which parts of you are saving and which ones you are laying to rest. These are 5 everyday ways this can show up. 1. Money. Closing an account, canceling something you no longer need, dropping a spending habit that kept an old insecurity alive. 2. Relationships. Deleting old messages, closing a conversation, releasing a pattern that's no longer yours. 3. Work. Finishing a project that died months ago. Stopping the insistence on something that doesn't move. Letting go of a role that no longer fits. 4. Body. Dropping a habit that harmed you. Closing a health or food phase that no longer matches who you are. Changing something small but essential. 5. Home. Empty a drawer, removing objects from another life, creating physical space for a year that hasn't arrived yet. If you want to know what you are letting go of this November 20th, or want to learn what is the language of your essential self, the link for personal readings is below. You can also discover my books, or you can also subscribe to my newsletter in Substack, on Substack, and support my work by becoming a premium member, or simply join the free membership that also allows you to read many of my articles there and many other things. Thank you very much for joining me today, and see you in the kitchen. Have a good new moon.